Darren Brind. How scripted was Shark Week? How much freedom did you have when filming for Discovery? Well, those are two different questions. Shark Week was fairly scripted in terms of the structure of what we were going to film. So the script looked like Adam and Jamie go to the Bahamas in a shark cage and try and see how easy it is to punch sharks to get them to go away. So we build a punching robot. But so it was only like the only scripting was in the structure of what we were doing. Our conclusions or what we said on camera, none of that was scripted. All of that was in the moment. That being said, it's not just like, someone points a camera and go, what's going on? We were aware of the sort of narratives we were building. We were aware of where the pieces we were filming would fit into that narrative. So it's like a puzzle in which you know where the pieces go, but the piece itself is not a shape until you make it a shape. So nobody ever told us like, well, you've got to say it this way, or you've got to say it that way. We had tons. That was the best part about working with Discovery on Mythbusters specifically, was that they never had any hand in what conclusions we came to. So there's this great point in which we were looking into doing 3D filming because that was going to be a thing at one point. And we brought in the best person in the world at 3D video production, which turned out to be James Cameron's lead producer on 3D stuff. And he came and spent a day with us. And there was this point at which he turned to my producer, Dan Tapster, and he says, let me get this straight. I'm watching this for about the last hour and a half. Do I get this correctly that the experiment takes precedence over the narrative filming? And Dan said, yeah, it does. Don't worry. These blokes will tie it up and wrap it up with a bow later on. But yeah, we're prioritizing the experiment over the filming to make sure we get the experiment right. And then we'll film around that. That's nothing better. I mean, that's great because a lot of reality television doesn't work that way. A lot of reality television, they write out what's going to happen and then everyone reads their script and it's mostly entirely scripted. I mean, it's hard to make a ton of television, and I don't begrudge reality producers having to do that given the restrictions they're getting from the network and their production companies, et cetera. There's no denigration happening here. There are fake narratives that I absolutely love watching because they're super enjoyable. Mark Rober's squirrel obstacle course. I love watching that because I love watching Mark Rober's squirrel obstacle course because it's so different from anything that I would make. It feels like watching a different language being spoken. And that's really both useful and exciting for me because like if I had that footage, I would be cutting a very different thing. And not to say one is better than the other. That would just, I have a different approach to filming than Mark does, than other producers do. So it's like, there are grades of reality within reality television, but the Mythbusters being a science show, the science was as real as we could get it, given the proclivities of producing for television. Trace Robbins is turning 30 pretty soon and says, frankly, I've got the willies about not knowing in which direction I'll be heading. Given all your previous experience, if you could go back and give 30-year-old Adam some advice on life work jobs or deciding to start something new, which would it be? Okay, so I'm 53. I was 30 in 1997. I had not yet had kids. I had been married for a few years. I was working at a toy company as the director of R&D, which was a terrible job for me because it was mostly filling in calendars and making phone calls. And on that job, which was a fantastic amount of experience. I got experience in package design and package manufacturing, in actual, Far East manufacturing and where your tools go and how to, the per piece shots. And all of that was tremendous experience going forward in the future. But the job itself sucked and I didn't like it. And I really examined what I didn't like about the job. And I realized the main thing was that I wasn't working with my hands, that's a thing that I have to do. I like supervising stuff. I like being a big picture guy. I also have to keep my hands dirty. So there is definitely like a movement in professional life where you might start out working with your hands, but by the end of your career, you're just a supervisor who doesn't build anything. And I mean, Stan Winston used to be hilarious about walking around the sets of Jurassic Park going, I don't build any of this stuff. These geniuses do. I'm just a pretty face. And I mean, that's paying so much wonderful respect to the incredible crew at Legacy. And Stan is the man. Like, I mean, he did the time in the trenches. He didn't have to build stuff then. And I don't know what he did as a hobby, but like, I just never wanted to be a supervisor who didn't still work with their hands. And I think that's actually a great ethos over there at Winston. I think Shane still gets his hands dirty all the time. But there I was in my 30s, at 30, at this crossroads, because I didn't like this job. I didn't know what I was going to do after that. And I was keeping in touch with friends, and I realized that ILM was in full swing on episode 1 Star Wars. And so I started to try and get work up there. And I did. But you asked specifically what advice see, the thing is, the advice I would have given myself is kind of exactly what I went and did, which was examine what you like and don't like about your current situation and see what about it you might change if you could. Yeah, it took me 4 months to get hired at ILM. I was still doing freelance jobs. I mean, that was the other point at which I've been talking about working hard. One of the parts about working hard as a freelancer is that every day you don't have a gig, you spend looking for a gig. So being a freelancer is itself a full-time job. Like, I would wake up at 9 and make phone calls until 4 or 5 if I didn't have stuff to build, looking for work, opening up the Real Directory, calling everybody, calling people who hired me last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, saying, hey, how's it going? Putting your name back in their head. The main thing that I would still tell 30-year-old me is that you have more time than you think. And you have time specifically to recover from a decision that didn't work. You do. You can even get it wrong. The most important thing is movement. The most important thing is movement, just like a shark in the water. If you stop swimming, you die. If you stop moving, you stagnate. You don't know where to go. But if you push in a direction, even if it's the wrong direction, that's information. So working for this toy company for 18 months, while it was definitely the wrong direction for me and not the kind of job I will ever seek out again, at the same time, it was super awesome for me as a litmus test against which to compare how I wanted work to feel. That is another one. That's a really key one to me. Don't just think about what you want to do. Think about how you want that work to feel to you professionally, personally, creatively, artistically, emotionally. What kind of work environment do you want to work in? Do you want to be left alone to do your job and not talk to anyone else? Do you want a social job? Everybody's different, and we all have to find our own way through this. But asking yourself those questions about how you want it to feel, super, super important. There's always going to be a doorbell ring during these live streams. There's another aspect I want to say before I wrap up, and I'm still going to try to get to the rest of these questions. One of the most important things you can do as a young or nascent professional is constantly be asking yourself this question: what do you want to work on? And you got to tell people about that. No one's going to figure out what's going on inside your head. You have to make it clear to the people around you. As a supervisor, I love it when someone who works for me says, I'd like to try this thing. Can we work out a way for me to explore this direction? Yes is the answer. An employee who wants to learn a new thing under your tutelage is like, that is a valuable and wonderful thing. They become even more of an asset. Also, when you tell people what you're working on and what you want to work on, they remember that. And so that person the person I was working with in theater who knew I wanted to work in film found themselves working in film and thought to themselves, wow, Adam wants to work here. He'd be perfect for this. I'm going to tell them about Adam. That's because I can't shut up about the things that I'm interested in. And people that would hear me would remember it and pass it on. You've got to be vocal. You've got to let people know what you want to do. And you've also got to let them know what you did. you got to point to the things that you did. You got to bring your work and show it and exult over it. Like when I first got hired at ILM, I brought in these toolboxes, and the toolboxes were part of the character that I was at ILM. I was totally cognizant of that. In the same way that for Jamie Heineman, wearing that beret as an early effects guy set him a specific place in the minds of the people who he worked for, and they would remember him. That was a very smart thing for him to do. I also recognize that for a lot of people, issues of credit and being properly credited for your work is a real thing. And I don't have a solution for that, because I recognize that being a white man, the kind of credit I get for my work is different than other people might get. And the environment under which I am praised is different than others. I'm just acknowledging that there are multiple bandwidths of experience here. And this one I'm giving you is only one. And I just want to caveat it out the wazoo. I don't know if caveat is a verb, but hey, I used it as one. Matthew Everett, do you work for clients like commissions or something now? Or does all this making and shop time mostly for personal enjoyment? I have bid on a few jobs out of here. Yes, over the past couple of years, I have. None of them have come to fruition yet, but I certainly still occasionally bidding, and people come to me with a commission. Don't get me wrong, I'm expensive. But I'm still willing to work. So I have bid on a couple of jobs. I just haven't done it.
Thank you guys so much for watching that video. If you'd like to further support us here at Tested, one of the best ways you can do it is through a Tested membership. And there's a link below as to the various levels of Tested membership, but it's so much more than just exclusive videos. There are exclusive videos, but there are also live stream Q&As. And the thing that I love most about the Tested members is the interactivity, the wonderful communication between not just me and Tested members, but our whole Tested team. Every single day it feels more and more like a community just devoted to the joys of making things. So join yourself up and become one of us.